This is going on right now here at the Yonkers Public Library, 1 Larkin Place. Harold, how you doing, man? How's everything?
Everything is great. I'm all wise and righteous. How's everybody doing today?
Everybody's good. I'm good. Our people are good. They're watching you. And
right
they're
on.
wondering what's going on here at the Yonkers Public Library. Tell us about it.
Yonkers, the lost city of hip-hop. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. Yonkers has its own story to tell. Jerome Enders, Raw Rome, he captured that story, published a book. Because of the 50th anniversary, it's enjoying a resurgence. Yonkers, the lost city of hip-hop. Today, what we're doing is dedicating this particular symposium to Trev Hollywood from Schlobohm. You guys know Trev.
Tell us a little bit more about Trev. He was born and raised here in Yonkers, went to great things, and he's known all over the world, not just in Yonkers. He's one of our stars.
Yes, he is. See, what happened with Trev, Trev was from Schlobohm and graduated from Gorton High School. Trev was an individual who didn't play sports. He didn't hang out. Trev spent his time at the library wondering, how does a tape recorder tape? How is music made? So Trev's theme is, it's all right to go to school. In the book, he has a section dedicated. It's titled, It's All Right to Go to School. Trev then went on to go to Mercy College, graduated with a studio engineering degree and music theory. Trev has worked for Funkmaster Flex. He's worked with Jay-Z, Mary Blige, Ice Cube, Isaac Hayes, and several other great entertainers in the business. Trev Hollywood.
All those icons. So coming here today and being part of this, you are being part of history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This partnership that Yonkers, the lost city of hip-hop, has with the library, we're doing amazing things here. We want the community to come out, take part in celebrating this history of hip-hop here in Yonkers. We have our own story. We know about the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn, but we are here to tell the Yonkers lost city of hip-hop story.
So we are going to be live streaming this on Yonkers Voice, but we are going to be live streaming this on your page as well. So those that might just catch up the first few minutes of Yonkers Voice and want to see the whole thing, where do they go?
They go to Yonkers, the lost city of hip-hop group, Facebook group. Yonkers, the lost city of hip-hop.
So guys, go there now, join the page, and be ready. This is on. We are going to start with a few, interviews, and then the thing is on. The show is on.
Let's go. Let's get it.
do it.
Beatmaster Gene.
So guys, come on down, Yonkers Public Library, the Yonkers lost city of hip-hop. It's on. Come on down, be part of it.
He's so cast away. Like the only one
that's in the middle there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Trev Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. Please take your seats. We're about to get started. First and foremost, thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the Yonkers Public Library for allowing us to do this presentation. We are live streaming this via Yonkers Lost City of Hip Hop as well as Yonkers Voice, courtesy of Raw. My name is Andrew Wang, and I'm the educator of hip hop music theory at Yonkers Lost City of Hip Hop. I'll talk you briefly how I got into hip hop. I got into hip hop through what's called beatboxing. You might have heard it before. It goes like that kind of thing. And I got it I learned that from a guy named Dougie Fresh. I then found electronic drum machines that sound like beatboxing. Then people like rappers would say words over that electronic beat, and the rest is history. So we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. And in tribute to the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, Jerome Enders, author of Yonkers, Lost City of Hip-Hop, has come up with a year-long workshop series celebrating the 50th anniversary by having notable Yonkers artists in the book to share their story. And with the 50th, we've also had opportunities to be a part of different conferences. We were a part of the International Hip Hop Studies Conference last week, and we're going to be presenting at the Global Conference for Hip Hop Education. So, speaking of book, we do have the book available for purchase. And Jerome Enders, the author of Yonkers, Lost City of Hip Hop, is going to give us a little understanding of the history and impact, but we already have some, and we're trying to get some other things going. Oh, of course, we have, thank you from the Yonkers Riverfront Library, our hip hop display case, which is all artifacts based on Yonkers artists, so that's become very exciting. And we got a lot more to, and he's here. All right, so Jerome Enders, the author of Yonkers, Lost City of Hip Hop, is going to now talk about the history and impact of Yonkers hip hop via Zoom. So, Jerome, when you're ready, take it away. Thank you. Jerome?
He just popped off. He's having trouble.
Jerome is actually in Georgia. We're going to be Georgia. He's logging on now.
I guess while we're waiting, we also have some family members of Jerome here who were part of, and he's here. The last thing in the first. And as a music teacher in Yonkers, I know both issues.
He's muted here. There. No response. He's off again. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Hello?
Can you hear us, Jerome?
Yeah, I can hear y'all.
There we go.
Yay.
All right, everyone, Jerome, thanks.
How y'all doing? Thank you. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Can y'all hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank everybody for coming. We appreciate everybody coming to celebrate and connect with this Yonkers history, this collective history, and to keep moving forward and, build information, use hip hop as a learning tool within the library, and connect with groups of musical tribes around the world. I wrote this book because I got inspired from my family members, the community, and different hip-hop practitioners locally and nationally. And then when I started to realize how much history and how Yonkers was connected authentically to the culture since the beginning, I thought that it will be a good writing for historical purposes. So what I started to do is when I first had this idea, I spoke to different practitioners in Yonkers, and one, which I would name from the book, she's a friend of Mary J. Blige. It's in the visualization story. Her name is Mushy. She grew up in Schlobohm. Mushy told me, considering, you know, the history and the knowledge that we have, that I should write a book telling my experiences, and not just that, put it in a situation in which I can archive it, in which it could be here for generations to come. So like I said, since Yonkers been involved with hip-hop since the beginning, I wanted to showcase our venues, like Wheels, we had School 12, we had Jackson Street, we had the Leons, we had Farmers High School, and those are examples in which, in the early times of hip-hop, practitioners locally and from out of the state and across the state, you could come back and forth to Yonkers. And not just that, we had our own local practitioners who was practicing the culture in town and was going back and forth to the Bronx. So we had those combinations all going on at one time. And this day, when we start throwing out the whole flyers to those that's into history, like different museums, different professors, or people that study and archive knowledge, they appreciate when they can see an artifact in Yonkers from 1980, 1977, early 80s, because it's all new to them. And they never seen anything like that because it's only one narrative. So as we move forward, we're connecting around the world. Individuals that are studying history are picking up our information, they're doing research, they're examining the information, and it's bringing more light to our town bringing a different light to our town, and they appreciate our town a little more. Prior to DMX, Mary J. Blige, The Locks, they started to look at our town as a breeding ground, or as a place that's been there since the foundation. So that's one of my reasons for writing the book, and I'm getting a lot of momentum with the book. I have a lot of researchers from different pockets of society wanting to reach out to the practitioners, want to come to Yonkers to look at these venues. They want to come to Yonkers to see our manuscript or our artifacts, and they want to come to Yonkers just to catch the energy of what we got going on. What inspired me, when I realized Yonkers was a pivotal historical place, is when the Locks and DMX came out. When the Locks and DMX came out, I lived in Georgia, and you appreciate a town, you appreciate your history when you travel abroad or you're out of the town and you hear other individuals have a great love for your history. And that's what we are with Yonkers, the Lost City of Hip Hop. We're moving into museums. We're moving into universities. We got workshops for the children. We use the music to educate. So within our premise, we're not just trying to discover new talent or just talk about the artist and the DJ and the singer. Within our premise, we show hip-hop manifest in many perspectives. We show hip-hop as a manifestation in Google. We show hip-hop at the highest in science and mathematics. We got hip-hop practitioners in all forms of life and business. So as we move forward, we're showing, not just showing hip-hop, the singer and the artist, we're showing how hip-hop shaped and molded individuals that shape society. In this particular book here, I wrote a chapter called It's Alright to Go to School. I knew Trev Hollywood for some time, and he used to come by the barbershop in Yonkers. Now, many of of us in Yonkers that picked up the talent, some of it became natural, some came natural, and most of them developed it natural, and they had their different ways to approach their success. In this particular case, with Trev Hollywood wanted, he had to go to school for it. And what connects me to the story, I actually saw the sacrifices, the trials and tribulations, and everything he had to give up to reach his goal. And that's what we're trying to drive home when we teach. When we use the elements of hip-hop, they talk about graffiti, breakdancing, lyrics, and DJing, we're dealing with the knowledge element. And we're trying to let individuals know it's okay to do the knowledge and apply the knowledge and spearhead and have your principles and your art based on the knowledge. So when I saw Trev going to school when I was writing this book, I said the best way I can give value to those that connect with this book is say it's okay to go to school. Because in some of our communities, or some of our neighborhoods, when you go to school, you know, you look at a certain way. And, you know, they ridicule you, they talk about you. And we got 50 stories of individuals in Yonkers that went to school that's really elevated. So let me read a few chapters from a few pages from It's Alright to Go to School, the Trev Hollywood story. I say that because with rap music comes a lot of jobs, management, video production, music production, radio, the list goes on. I wrote this piece in hopes to inspire young readers or anyone with a desire to grow and progress where their heart will lead them. There's one individual that comes to mind who is a testimony of patience and consistency. Why do I say that? Because for years, this brother used to come to the barbershop and tell me how he was a full-time student trying to attain a degree while working full-time at the radio station. This brother grew up in Schlobohm with Mary, but he didn't rap or sing. He's one of the major players behind the scenes because he chose to attend Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry, and he received a degree in radio production and communication. Now he's one of your biggest production managers in radio. When he went from Master Flex, he was called Trev Intern. In past conversations, Trev explained to me how he put the time in, how he learned the game, and how it was really played. But Trev's main thing was to pay his dues. I remember how he would be working long hours at the radio station, trying to learn as much as he could. He networked with as many people as he could because he knew when he graduated, things would open up for him. Many times, Trev came by the barbershop and was complaining about school, how he couldn't wait to finish. He was becoming impatient as time went along. Then he would remind himself of the reason why he was going to school in the first place. I remember him telling me that everyone can't be on stage or a music producer. Let me read that part again. I remember Trev telling me that everyone cannot be on stage or a music producer. There are many opportunities out there. You just have to find your niche and specialize in it. Time finally came around, and it was the day before graduation, and Trev came by the shop to get a haircut. He was excited, but relieved it was over. Normally, he would chill at the shop for a while and kick it with the fellas, but that day he kept it moving. He had so many things to do before his big day. On the day of his graduation, my god sister Monique was graduating also. She said that as soon as the ceremony was over, Trev said he was out of here and jetted off to the crowd. I haven't spoken to Trev in a while, but the last thing I knew of his career, his name was changed to Trev Hollywood, and he was a production manager for the Wendy Williams Show. As I speak to children around the world about the musical history of my hometown, I always use Trev Hollywood example. He optimizes how sacrifice, hard work, and talent with education pays off in the end. That's Trev Hollywood. Thank you. Before Trev speaks, we're really pushing education, any type of education to elevate yourself. And we let you know within our camp it's all right to go to school, and we'll provide support and resources, information to help you get along. Thank you very much.
I was about to spit a verse.
Can we read some more from the book then? Because I can't see it.
Obviously, if we're talking about music, it's not as fun just a lecture, but to have the actual music here. So thank you, B-Master James, for doing what you do. All right. So we're going to have a nice little interview conversation featuring, first off, Robert Baskerville, who is a former professor of hip-hop sociology at the College of New Rochelle and is currently a professor of sociology at the City University of New York. And then we have Trev Hollywood, who was born in Yonkers, New York, was raised in the Schlobohm projects. Trying my best there. Schlobohm. With a bachelor's degree in recording technology from Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry, New York. By the way, I reached out to Stephen, the head production. Yeah, he says to give your best. He wished he could be here or even to watch it, but make sure he gets to see this. Trev Hollywood has over 20 years of experience as an audio engineer and producer for New York radio stations. He began his career by winning an internship contest for the Wendy Williams Show at 98.7 KISS FM in the early 90s. Then went on to become a production assistant for Hot 97 FM, 107.5 WBLS-FM, 1190 WLIB-AM, as well as several recording studio and production facilities, including Rising Star Studios in Yonkers, under the leadership of Harold and Mary McKoy, who are here at the moment. Trev most notably held a position as a production manager for the Wendy Williams Experience radio show for several years, which went on to become a critically acclaimed, nationally syndicated show. So we're going to have a little conversation with Robert asking some questions and getting some answers from Trev Hollywood. So if both of you guys could come take your seats and we'll get started. Thank you.
You know, this is my actual cousin. Yeah. So my father and his mother are brother and sister. So this is a family reunion. It just ended up being a coincidence.
Yes. So it's an immense pleasure for us to be with you all tonight. And I should say that education and a respect for knowledge is a common driver of both of our careers. I'm known as Dr. Baskerville, sometimes Brooklyn Bob, PhD, Bookworm Bob, but the driving force behind all of that is the stress that was placed on the importance of knowledge in hip-hop culture, especially, most importantly, in my judgment, from the 5% Nation that stressed the importance of knowledge and, inspired us to let knowledge be born. And in actuality, Trev and I used to bump heads together. Back in the early 2000s, when he was at Height 97, I believe you were on 34th, and I was at the Graduate Center, and we would have the good fortune of running into one another. And even though it was a bit of a surprise for me to learn it was a surprise for me to learn then about Trevor's remarkable involvement in hip-hop and how high he had climbed. I mean, needless to say, don't get much higher than Hot 97. I will confess that even as his cousin, many of the most intimate details about his journey are unknown to me. And so this is going to be part of my continuing education. So it's a pleasure, and, you know, I want to give it up to your cousin once again. So to begin with, Trev, cousin to cousin. How did growing up in Yonkers in particular influence you to get into hip-hop and shape your perspective on hip-hop and on, you know, artistic expression more generally?
Right, so I think growing up in Schlobohm, we were always exposed to music, you know, in the house with my mother playing. She used to always play Johnny Mathis records, you know, at Christmas time. She had James Brown records. You know, I remember when we were like 2 or 3 years old, you know, we had Jackson 5 singles. So we were always exposed to music, you know, in the house. Can y'all hear me?
Yes. A little louder, that's great.
telling me to project.
Project. There you
I'll
go.
speak from the diaphragm. So growing up in Schlobohm projects, you didn't need a radio in the house because somebody was always playing music outside. So all you had to do was just open the window. Kim was shaking her head because Kim lived right across the street from me in building 7. And you work for the library now still, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so I see a lot of familiar faces here. But you didn't need a radio living in Schlobohm because somebody always had a radio playing, so we were always exposed to music. But I think growing up in Yonkers, just being exposed to the local music scene had a big impact because all of the artists that you all know now, and I meant to acknowledge, I saw King Kirk from Sporty Thieves here a little bit earlier, so I know we have mentioned Mary J. Blige, The Lox, DMX, but Sporty Thieves was also one of the big groups from Yonkers also that doesn't get as much recognition. So he was here earlier, I guess he's out.
I didn't know Scrub either.
So he had a big song called No Pigeons and Cheapskates, one of my favorite songs. So I wanted to acknowledge him. But, you know, just growing up with all of those artists that I just named, a lot of people know those artists now because they achieved commercial success, but we grew up with all those artists and saw their journey on the way up. So we would go around to studios and the ciphers on the corners, and you know, before the Lox were the Lox, they were just Jay and Sean from Ravine. Before Mary J. Blige was Mary J. Blige, she was just Mary to us. DMX was just Earl. You know, so all of us knew each other from long before they all became successful. So we were fortunate to have been exposed to, you know, the local music scene. I wasn't able to go to school 12 because my mother kind of kept us sheltered. So I would get the tapes from the battles with DMX and Bill Blass, and I would get it from DJ Superior. So even though I wasn't able to physically be there, I was always kind of immersed in that world through the street tapes.
You know, Trev, I got to say that oftentimes when people recount their trajectory through hip-hop, there's a lot of almost exclusive emphasis on DJs and MCs, and one of the things that's really unique that I'm sure we all appreciate is the interaction you all had with Mary as a vocalist. And I'm curious to know, as both a vocalist and as a woman, you know, did that have any particular impact on you, how you looked at it, or, you know, am I just reaching here? We reached.
Yeah, I think the impact that it had on me is that I saw the drive that she had. I don't know if she planned on being the superstar that she is now, but I remember you mentioned Mushy, and you know, we would sit outside sometimes in the summertime, and I remember Mushy saying how Mary was going to studios, and we never envisioned that she would be what she is now. But I remember her having that same drive and passion that I had to do, you know, this thing behind the scenes. The same drive that the Lox had when, you know, they were just on the corner, you know, just trying to make it. The same drive that DMX had when we were in school 12. All of us had that same drive and passion to make some kind of impact. You know, I don't know if any of them planned on being what they ended up becoming, but I know that they did because of that drive that they had. So being that I saw that, you know, that's what kind of fueled me too.
Got you. Well, I think it's important to note that because all too often I think the perception is musical success relies on a natural, innate talent, and that you don't really have to work on it. And those of us who have been close to artists know that those who really do succeed have the passion, the drive, the discipline to do it. So interesting that you should mention that. I'm curious to know, it sounds like a lot happened on the Yonkers hip-hop scene, and I'm curious to know if you could share a particularly, you know, memorable experience that you had, event, or something that really encapsulates your connection to Yonkers hip-hop.
Well, I was coming out of high school one day, and I used to rhyme at the time. So Rome said that I didn't rap or sing, but I actually did rap when I was in high school just for fun. So one day I'm coming out of school, and this dude is waiting for me, and I'm thinking that I had a problem because I was trying to talk to my girlfriend or something. And so he says, "Yo, I hear you rhyme. I'm looking for you." Meanwhile, I didn't know who this dude was at all.
Right.
So everybody told me who he was. So we had a battle right there on the steps at Gordon High School.
Right.
And I spit a rhyme, and it was hot, which is why he was looking for me in the first place.
Right.
Right? Because he didn't waste no time with somebody that he wasn't going to, waste time with. And then he spit his, and then it was clear from like the first round that I wasn't winning that battle.
Okay.
It was clear. And I was okay with it because I was just doing it for fun anyway. I wasn't trying to be a rapper like that, you know what I mean? But he was trying to be a rapper. He wasn't playing.
Right.
He wasn't playing. So he was there. He was smoking a cigarette as he was rhyming. He was doing sound effects and everything. And I was just, I took that out. You know what I mean? But that's one of the things that I remember most, like before, everybody became who they ended up becoming. And that's kind of what made me follow him from that point on, because it was clear that he was cut from a very different cloth from all of the other rappers in Yonkers. It was to the point where I remember, and I'm only mentioning DMX because he's so influential to hip-hop in Yonkers that you can't not mention him, right? And I remember one time him performing at Trevor Park for the African American Heritage Festival. And I remember he had that crowd where whatever he told them to do, they would have done. And it was clear that he had that kind of power and influence. And I remember him walking around Yonkers before he was famous and me saying, I don't understand how this dude is not on right now, because everybody that's out, he's better than everybody that's on the radio. So I knew it was just a matter of time before he came on. So he's one of the people that, I remember the most as far as, those memorable moments in hip hop before, they became famous.
Gotcha. I see you've had the rare experience of battling some of Yonkers' best-known MCs.
Well, I'm not proud of losing that, but that's the story.
Well, you're here to tell a story, and that's what counts. I'm curious to know, though, besides just, spontaneous battles you might have had on the streets, as you progressed through the music industry, have you had an opportunity to work with any of Yonkers artists in particular? If so, who, what's some of those projects look like?
So we had a studio for Mr. McKoy, who's right here with us. Rising Star Studios, which was right in the square, 45 South Broadway. And we worked with a lot of artists, not just hip hop, but we had R&B artists. But one in particular, Montega Bricks from Runyon Heights. So he's still around. I'm not sure if he's still in the music scene or not. I know he was sick for a while. But Montega Bricks, we were working with some other artists. They weren't all from Yonkers. We had an R&B artist that was signed to RCA for a little while, Lakeisha Fuller, she's still in Yonkers. I think she's Lakeisha Rice now.
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I forgot to project again. Lakeisha Fuller, well, formerly Fuller. What's up, man? Lakeisha Fuller's now, she's Lakeisha Rice. So I think she sings gospel now. Am I forgetting anybody else? We had another artist from Staten Island that we were working with. He passed away since then. Oh, Sun, yeah, we had another group. They won a couple of times on, remember when the Apollo used to come on?
Right.
Showtime at the Apollo? They won a couple of weeks in a row, a group named called Sun. So these are artists that, they didn't end up getting commercial success, but, they did have an impact in, the Yonkers music scene.
Right. I mean, the title of the book is The Lost City of Hip Hop, sort of underscoring the failure of the city of Yonkers to get the recognition musically that it, deserves. And I'm curious, you named a lot of artists who were near commercial successes, but didn't make it to the extent that they wanted to. And I'm curious your thoughts on why it is that artists from the city of Yonkers have often been passed over at a time when artists from so many of, the boroughs in their proximity have really risen to the zenith of the industry. What do you think counts for that?
I think Yonkers just always had this stigma of being, everybody that's in the music industry that were on, they all came from Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, even Staten Island was on at one point before us with Wu-Tang Clan. So Yonkers always had this stigma that we were, up north. They thought we had cows and chickens and stuff walking around until Mary came out and disproved that. So I really think it's just because of the stigma that it had until, and I have to give Mary credit. She was the one that really showed us not where you from, where you're from. It's the talent that you have, and that's how we end up getting put on the map. But I think it was because of the stigma that the city had. We were the only borough that really, I'm assuming not the borough, the only city that didn't have an artist, from out of Westchester. You had Brand Nubian that was out, from New Rochelle. Right. You had Heavy D and Puffy and Pete Rock and CL Smooth and I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody. But we had artists. Yeah, that's a Pete Rock and CL Smooth. So Mount Vernon had, people from Mount Vernon on. You had people from New Rochelle on. You had Masters of Ceremonies from there, in addition to Brand Nubian. White Plains even had Atlantic Star. So Yonkers was the only one out of the 4 main cities in Westchester that, really wasn't on. So Mary, DMX, and Lox, and 40 Thieves helped change that.
Right. I know when I've listened to some commentary on the development of hip hop by featuring artists like De La Soul and others who are from outside of the 5 boroughs, they hint at important differences between being an MC in the 5 boroughs proper versus being maybe from some of the surrounding suburbs, suggesting a different set of values and life experience, separated MCs from the suburbs versus those who was in, in the 5 boroughs. Is that your experience? Do you see any of that reflected in any of the music? You think there's anything to that?
Yeah, I think so, because you're going to rap about whatever you see. So whatever you're around, that's going to be your experience. So if you grew up in the hood and you were seeing drugs and poor conditions and whatever, you might have been exposed to, that's what you're going to reflect in your music. But if you grew up in Long Island and you got grass as opposed to concrete and you're not seeing the same things, De La Soul style was completely different than somebody that came from Brooklyn. But I believe it's because of the experience that they had and what they were seeing around them.
Gives me a different interpretation on the well-known phrase, potholes in my lawn. That's rather odd. Okay.
That's what, in my opinion.
Right. Okay.
And that's not to say that any of the music was glorifying, conditions that they saw in the projects, but that is what, so like, I look at some rappers as street reporters, we're not glamorizing it, but that's the conditions they see.
Right, I happen to be from Mount Vernon, and Hev is known, the best known MC out of the Ville thus far, is known for, some unconventional themes, if you will. Now that we found love, especially coming from men. It's not a kind of theme that I hear voiced as much from men in hip hop, so perhaps that might be an example.
I agree.
Okay, good. Great student, Trev. Since you mentioned Mary in particular, my understanding is that there's a bit of a connection between Mary's rise to stardom and some of the artists in Mount Vernon, through maybe Uptown. Any insights into how that occurred?
I don't know the whole story. What I understand is that she got signed from, I think Jeff Redd is the one that brought her to Uptown.
Right.
And apparently Andre Harrell came down to Schlobohm one day. I wasn't there, but it must have been a big to-do. And she sang right there, I guess in the kitchen or wherever, she sang for him. And then the rest was history from there. But from what I understand, Jeff Redd, and you're shaking your head, so I'm, I guess, co-signing that story, Kim? Yes. So, yeah, I guess Jeff Redd put her on.
Okay, okay.
If y'all don't know Jeff Redd, he's an artist from Mount Vernon. Had the big song You Call Him.
love him.
No, You Call Him Told. You Call Him Told. Off the.
Oh, okay.
I think you're talking about.
Jeff Redd.
No.
Wait.
You Call Him Told.
Nah, you call him.
You Call Him Told.
That was his most popular.
But yeah, that song's off the Strictly Business soundtrack. But I think you're talking about Fatback Band.
Nah, but Jeff did a
Maybe he did a remake.
Yeah, he killed it. He killed it.
Yeah, maybe he did a remake. But from what I understand, he's the one that put it on.
50 years, this can be a long time. Oftentimes, we think of people aging out of hip-hop.
Can I just say I was here for all 50 of them? Thank God, right? So I'll tell you my age.
People often, the perception is people age out of hip-hop, and that hip-hop is somehow or the other a young person's game. Very obviously, you have decided to continue your devotion to the field and to the music, and even so far as to help us in this celebration of this important milestone. And I'm curious to know, we're curious to know, you know, what is the drive that gets you to sacrifice time, energy, you know, resources where you could be doing something else, maybe perhaps something somewhat more enjoyable. This is enjoyable, I'm sure. But yeah.
I mean, for me, it's just the simplest answer is I always loved music, and I just wanted to be a part of it somehow. The good thing about hip hop is that it's not something that you have to be accepted into. You just get in where you fit in, and if you're doing what people respect, you're in. That's it. My older brother gave me a radio as a 6th grade graduation present, and that was really the turning point for me because that opened the door to a whole world that I didn't even know existed. So once I discovered Chuck Chillout on Friday nights when he used to come on Kiss, Red Alert on Saturday nights, Mr. Magic and Marley Marl, that's what exposed me to Run DMC and EPMD and Public Enemy and Heavy D and Salt and Pepper. You know, that was the era that once I first really started becoming aware of hip hop. We had heard Sugar Hill Gang on the radio before that, and heard them in the block parties in the park and everything. But having that radio allowed me to be able to record everything. So it's like you could hear it. You live in an experience of what's being broadcast on the radio, but not only do you get to hear it, but you can capture it. So I used to stay up late at night. I was supposed to be in the bed, sleep, and I would be in the covers, in the bed under the covers with the headphones on, and I'm recording everything, and I'm catching it all, right? And that would be my mixtape that I would play on my radio in the street the next day. So we didn't have the mixtapes like now where you could get from Clue or K-Slay or Kid Capri or whoever. We used to record it on the radio, pause it when the commercials came on, unpause it when the commercials went off. That was your pause tape. You had a little click in between, it was a little choppy, but you had the newest EPMD, you had the newest Run DMC, you had the newest whoever was out. And that's really what inspired me to get into the music thing, because not only was it the music thing, but then I became inquisitive about how the whole process worked. So I'm like, how is this tape able to reproduce everything exactly the way it was broadcast? So I was never into sports. So I used to actually walk down from Schlobohm to the library, which was not here at the time. It was up the street at 7 Main Street, where the dollar store is now. And I would go there, and I used to just stay in the library. I wasn't into sports, so I wasn't trying to play basketball and that all day. I used to rather spend my time in the library reading books on, I know it's crazy for a 12-year-old, but I was go to the library and read books on microphone polar patterns and how the whole process worked and how you know, layering worked with sequencing and all the different, they didn't have software at the time, but how you know, the tapes worked and just the whole recording process. So by the time I got to going to audio school, I was already familiar with most of it already because I had learned a lot of it on my own from going to the library.
So I see I'm not the only bookworm in the family. So I see your fascination for hip hop first developed when you got your first box, as we used to call it. I'm curious to know what was the first piece of equipment you got, and how did that help to cultivate your interest in becoming a producer?
So the first thing I ever bought was, I bought this Gemini mixer, and I didn't even have anything to connect it to. I just bought it because it looked cool. I used to see Jam Master Jay, you know, cutting and doing his thing on it, and I wanted to at least get started with that. I had nothing to connect it to, and stupid me was so focused on talking to the girls in high school. I remember I left it on the newspaper stand